Tekedra Mawakana. What's interesting about these events, there are many CEOs in the room, many officials in the room, and when you do a conversation like this, they all run up to you and say, can you ask this person this thing? Gary set us up quite well with quite a long list, I think, but I have driven hundreds of miles in the back seat of a Waymo with no driver in the front seat, and you just heard the words, take it for granted. Completely normal for me in the Bay Area. They're here to hear you, but I just thought we'd set expectations given we have people here from around the world. Has anyone here, show of hands, taken a ride in a fully autonomous Waymo?
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a fair number. I won't give a percentage, but there also is a fair number that have not. The basics are, if you'll allow me,
yes.
Waymo is a company, a startup, owned in part by Alphabet, the parent of Google, but with outside investors, that operates a fleet of robo-taxis in several cities and operates with those robo-taxis a ride-hailing service akin to Uber, Lyft. There are others available in other jurisdictions. Take it from there and tell us where you're at in 2025.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Gary and Tiffany, for the invitation and also for that introduction. So Waymo, as Ed said, let's start with the end of 2024.
Please.
Where were we when the year ended? So we operate 24/7 ride-hailing service across the Phoenix metro area, in Austin, as well as in San Francisco and Los Angeles. In 2024, which was a really pivotal year of momentum for us, we served over 4 million paid rides, and we're really excited about that. At the end of the year, we were offering 150,000 rides a week, and we were driving 1 million miles a week. And that is more than a human drives in a lifetime.
And I would just point out, the 4 million in 2024, I believe Waymo has now done 5 million to date, 4 million in the last 12 months alone. I've been coming to CES for a few years now, not as many as many of you, but 2018 onwards, it was like this frustration. They're like, come on, when is this going to be real? Did it become real in 2024?
It definitely became real. I mean, it had been real. You know, I want to really applaud the mayor of Phoenix, right? Because it had been real in Arizona and specifically in Phoenix for a long time. We took the human driver from behind the wheel in October of 2020 during the pandemic because it was such a perfect time. People didn't want to share the space with anyone else.
Right.
In 2024, what made that particularly exciting is we opened the first fully autonomous international airport, which is Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. So if you fly into Phoenix, you can download the Waymo app, and you can hail a ride at curbside. And that became like a really exciting use case because all of a sudden it wasn't just people who lived in the territories in which we operate. It was anyone who flew into those territories could experience this technology. I'll also say for us, you know, we're on this mission to be the world's most trusted driver. And so when we talk about the service, the Waymo One service, it's all powered by what we refer to as the Waymo driver. And for us, what makes this meaningful is the impact it has in real people's everyday lives. And so it's been so fun and rewarding to watch people, and you know, you're one of these people, but have these use cases that are really served by the Waymo driver and the Waymo One.
I wasn't going to do this early, but there is an academic debate in the world of autonomous driving about the inputs into the vehicle. Elon Musk and Tesla believe in a vision-based system, right? Cameras only, and their principal argument is that as a component, camera is the cheapest, so it can be scaled to profit. Their argument is that you'll never get there because your sensors are made up of suites of LiDAR, radar, and cameras. You would argue that that gives redundancy and therefore safety. Who is right and who is wrong? Or why are you right?
What I will say is we are the only company that's been offering a 24-hour service for the last 4 years. We think it's tremendously important for the Waymo driver to, as you said, have this redundancy. We're a company that started in the early days. We've been at this for 15 years. And in the early days, we started with ML in our tech stack. And so it's not an either or debate. It's really this sort of what is the natural evolution of the capability of a driver that's built of it has to have very good spatial understanding and reasoning capability. So we're not really having that debate right now. The conversation that we're having at Waymo is how do we take state-of-the-art AI, which for us is a large language model, which is built on the three-dimensional world. And then how do we take VLMs, which are visual language models, and how do we marry them and create an end-to-end, very, very robust and large end-to-end system that's multimodal in its foundation, so that perception, planning, and prediction, which is how the Waymo driver is able to navigate the world around it, can become even more robust than it is today. So for us, we started where we started 15 years ago. We can't go back. And so now we're just taking the advances of AI and we're embedding them into the models that we have, and we're just accelerating and moving forward. And when we talk about cost, for us, we build the Waymo driver. We do all of our hardware and compute and sensors internally. We have partnerships for other components. And so what that allows us to do is cost down the driver over time. And so in 2024, we announced the 6th generation driver, which means we've done this across various vehicle platforms across
Let's go there then. I want to stay true initially to the technology conversation. You know me, and that's where it's at, and then we'll talk about the coming administration. In San Francisco and in markets like Los Angeles and in the greater Phoenix metro area, you use retrofitted Jaguar I-Paces. They're custom, they come to you so that you can easily input your sensors. You have a very interesting deal with Zeekr. What is the status of that? I think the question I get most often for you is the status of it. Where are the vehicles made? What kind of vehicles are they? Are they retrofitted consumer cars? Are they purpose-built? There's a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, so we do our fleet right now. All of our fleets are fully electric. We have the JLR I-Pace, as you mentioned. And then our next vehicle platform, there's a few cars that we're testing right now, which is a Zeekr vehicle, which was a custom-built, sort of passenger-centric vehicle, right? If you were building a car and not thinking about a driver, well, you want more space, you want easy ingress and egress. You know, the doors open like elevator doors as opposed to like car doors. You know, there are a lot of aspects of the vehicle that's really appealing for a passenger service.
Has it a steering wheel and pedals?
It does.
Okay, and why?
Because it's required still by law that cars that are FMVSS certified have all of the human controls. And so it has all of the human controls. You can imagine a world in the future where all of that will evolve and change. But in the time frame that we're talking about, that's not going to happen. And then in 2025, in Q4, we announced a partnership with Hyundai, and so we will also have the Ioniq 5 in our fleet.
And what's the timeline for that, please?
That is in the 2026, 2027 timeline. And for us, you know, we're focused on building a driver. And so automotive companies are a really important part of our strategy. You know, because we started 15 years ago, there isn't an AV ecosystem that exists. And so for us, building an AV ecosystem has been a real focus, you know, because we're focused on not just safe, but also sustainable transportation. You know, we have these charging partners, you know, Terawatt, EVgo, and Volterra, and it's really important for us to have these partners. We have Magna, who does the vehicle integration that you were talking about. So when you talk about how do you actually affix the Waymo driver, you go out and you do these partnerships with automotive companies. Where is the driver built and where is it assembled? In Detroit. That's where we build it, and that's where it's assembled.
And with Zeekr specifically, we have to ask, what are the supply chain risks for you there? Are there any, given Zeekr's ownership and relationship to China?
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously we're super focused on that. And at this time, there's no risk to it. I mean, there's cost implications, obviously,
of course,
associated with that, but there isn't. But this is why we have a multi-partnership strategy. We've always wanted to have a multi-partnership strategy. And, you know, this is something we're going to keep focusing on. And I think of the global supply chain sort of issues are not unique to us, right? If you talk about electrification, if you talk about sort of bringing, you know, mobility into the next sort of century, the global supply chain is going to be at the center of that conversation, and making sure that it's robust and making sure that companies, whichever part of the sort of ecosystem they're a part of, are going to have access to the components that they need in order ultimately for consumers to have the services that they need and products.
It's a good time then to go to Japan. That was such an interesting announcement. That will be your first international market ex the US. Why Japan and Tokyo, and what you just said about supply chain, how will you operationalize that?
Yeah, so last year we announced that we're gonna start sort of training the Waymo driver in Tokyo. Obviously, it's important for us to learn to drive on the other side of the road. It's important for us to, we have all of this capability in English. We also need to tackle sort of navigating the world around us in other languages. So that's really what we're focused on right now. We haven't gotten all the way to what's the path to launching, but we did announce a partnership with Nihon and Go, and we're really excited about everything that Tokyo is going to give us the opportunity to learn. And that's, when you think about Waymo, we start out, when we go somewhere new, we're very focused on engaging and learning and listening. It's really important that this technology be relevant to the use cases that'll actually impact people's lives, or city planners, transportation planners. And so that's the way that we've engaged since the beginning, and this is going to be another really fun example of that.
Should we talk about this city? It was very interesting to hear from the mayor. I spent the afternoon with some of your friends, and I was taken around the circumference of the city from the airport at Zoox's depot, through the strip in a purpose-built vehicle, inward-facing seats, no steering wheel, no pedals. They like Las Vegas. It's flat, but you can see the use case where a tourist flies in, Zoox, straight to the strip. When are you going to be here?
We don't, nothing to share on that right now. Nothing to share on that. No news, no breaking news on that. But obviously Las Vegas is a very attractive market, and one of the things you'll see from us in 2025, we've already announced that we are partnering with Uber to launch in Austin as well as Atlanta. Right now Austin is limited, but we will launch. And also in Miami, we've announced that we will start testing there this year and launch there. And one of the things you'll see from us this year is testing across a host of cities so that we can launch over the next couple of years throughout the US and internationally.
I'd like to talk a bit about Uber, because in those new cities, there is a partnership with a third party. Really interesting insofar as that if you are an Uber user, you can get a Waymo, but not even proactively. It might just appear as part of your choice for a certain type of premium ride. Why did you do that deal?
Yeah, we have a partnership, a pilot at a very small scale that we've been doing with Uber in Phoenix. And one of the things that we learned is that given the choice, consumers were choosing to take a Waymo. And this was just, the Waymo vehicles on the Uber app. What's exciting, though, about this partnership that we've announced for Austin and Atlanta is Uber's actually going to take responsibility for operating the fleet. And that's, when we think about building the Waymo driver, we're talking about ride hailing right now, but as a company, our ambitions include local delivery, licensing our technology to automotive companies for personally owned cars, as well as Class 8 trucking, long-haul trucking. And so, this isn't like a winner takes all, Waymo does it all approach. This is like coming up with the technology, thinking about how many trillions of miles are traveled, and then figuring out the best partnership approach to scaling our technology. And so this partnership with Uber, and then also with Move, who's a fleet operator. So in that case, we will, it'll still be the Waymo app, but in those other two markets, it'll be the Uber app. And it's exciting. We're going to tap into an ecosystem of consumers who are already going to ride hailing as their choice, and then they're going to learn about autonomy. And that's very exciting for us.
With the time we have left, I want to get to something that Gary was talking about, which is the pathways to getting more robo-taxis across US roads. And data is really important here. One data set that you are proud of is the latest 33 million miles driven, the outperformance of Waymo driver relative to human drivers. Sometimes that can sound like a metric that's made up in the favor of your industry, but why do you have faith in that metric, and why is it important to put in front of regulators and to put in front of the public?
Yeah.
And consumers, most crucially in this event. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us, we have a safety hub on our website. We've been very focused on transparency. This isn't an industry, as Gary said, that has a national framework. Having a national framework could be one of two things. It could be a race to the bottom on safety, which obviously we would be opposed to, because our only mission is to actually make roads safer, save lives, and offer sustainable mobility options to people. And so one of the ways we model this future state that we think is so important is by being transparent about the impact that the Waymo driver is already having on society. And so in the case of this 33 million miles, we found, and this is compared to human drivers, we found that there were 78% fewer injury-causing crashes and 81% fewer airbag deployment crashes. That's it's important in two ways. One way it's important because it says this is already better than a human. This is something that we shouldn't be afraid of. We should accept that the status quo isn't good enough, and there's an option to improve the status quo. The other thing it says is autonomous vehicles aren't perfect. We're not entering, this is a really important point. It's not that they're going to be perfect, it's that they're going to be so much safer. And the other study that we just announced at the same time of this one is for the 25 million miles, we did a study with Swiss Re, which is one of the largest global insurers.
Right.
Yes. And the reason that's important to also bring up is because they're, unlike the other study where we're looking at human drivers, that study is looking at insurance claims. And what we found is that the reduction in personal injury claims was 92%, and the reduction in property damage claims was 88%. So when you have these kinds of numbers, we shouldn't be debating about whether or not this is going to improve road safety. We should just be figuring out the way to ensure that the safety bar is adequate for whoever puts these kinds of cars on the road to be able to do so.
Okay, what you just said, whoever puts these cars on the road, and you said race to the bottom or race to the top. Probably one of the most read stories or articles I wrote in 2024 was a sidebar from Tesla's earnings call, where Elon Musk said that if Donald Trump were to be elected, he would use a position in Doge to find a federal pathway to get more robo-taxis on the road. How do you feel about the broad principle of that, but also, frankly, on paper, you will be in direct competition as Tesla also wishes to pursue a proprietary ride-hailing app, its own purpose-built robo-taxi with its own, I don't want to say academic or philosophical, its own approach to autonomous driving?
Yeah, because we're on a mission to improve road safety, we welcome competition in the space, right? Making the road safer is an important mission, and it's too big for one company. So that's a great thing.
Okay.
As far as a national framework, that would be great. It's just that framework should require people to demonstrate their safety record.
Do you have faith that Elon Musk, if he were to influence that process, would do it in a way that is fair to companies pursuing the same goal as his?
I'm not going to talk either about my faith or Elon Musk in that context. I have a lot of faith, though. I do have a lot of faith as a person, as a human, in humanity. And no, I mean, I think it's I think, I've been at Waymo for almost 8 years. When I joined Waymo, Donald Trump was president. Secretary Chow was transportation secretary.
Yes.
The administration was very forward-leaning on advancing AVs. I feel really strongly that there's an opportunity to do so in a very different context, which globally, the race around autonomous vehicles has matured. And so this is a real opportunity for US leadership. And so enabling, safe, sustainable transportation that's autonomous is very aligned with what I think this administration will want to do. They have faith too.
It's been a privilege really to be able to just participate in many of what you and your peers are doing on the road, right? That's kind of my thing. I like to go and not get behind the wheel anymore, but put my faith in a robo-taxi. There were times, though, where you were pursuing other lines of business, which was really interesting, trucking. Is the door closed to that? Things like delivery of goods, because the technology is applicable to those scenarios, right?
That's exactly right. No, our strategy is the same. We just, there's a lot of humility that you need when you're doing something that requires so much discovery. And one of the things we realized is we were just doing too many things at once. And so we decided that we would pause, but we didn't pause trucking entirely. We have a partnership with Daimler Trucks, and it's for a redundant platform. You can't remove a human unless you have redundant braking, steering, and compute power in a car. And so we have a redundant platform with Daimler Trucks, so that gives us the opportunity to resume that line of business when we're ready. Local delivery is something. We had a really fun partnership with Albertsons where we did delivery from Safeway stores in San Francisco. And as I said, making our technology available to automotive partners. Over the years, we've seen many automotive partners not pursue level 4, which is technology where you actually don't need a license or anyone behind the wheel. And Waymo's the only company doing that. And so making our technology available to automotive partners is also a really important part of our strategy. So it's a big, audacious strategy for a very hardworking team of what we refer to as Waymonauts, I think on a really important mission.
Waymo IPO?
Stay tuned, Ed.
I've been very patient thus far with your industry, so let me ask you this final thing. The joy of CES in many ways is that it's the start of the year, and you have all of these people in one place. It's actually kind of astonishing that you start a calendar year like that. If you did 4 million miles in 2024, you must have, the whole system is based on prediction of events around the vehicle. You must sort of have a goal for what you think you'll do this year in terms of miles driven and number of public rides that you give.
We do.
And you must share it with just me and these people.
We do. I can just say that, that's one of the things we're most excited about. Seeing that kind of momentum going from 5 million over, such a long period of time to 4 million just in 1 year, and now moving into 2025. Stay tuned, but this is just like a really exciting time for autonomy.
Our sincere thanks to Kinsey, to Gary, to the CTA, and most importantly, Tekedra Mawakana, Waymo co-CEO. Thank you.
So much.